Two legendary figures, one chilling curse, and countless unanswered questions. Today, we unravel the hauntingly mysterious deaths of Bruce Lee and his son Brandon Lee. Was it fate, conspiracy, or something more sinister? Today I want to tell you the story of the death of Brandon Lee, son of Bruce Lee, both of whom were tragically and mysteriously destined by fate, or some curse, as some say, to lose their lives at a very young age. Let's begin with Senior Lee. Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco on November 27, 1940. It's hard to find words that truly capture the impact he had on the world, particularly in cinema and martial arts. Fans believe that everything, both fortunate and unfortunate, started in his childhood. He made his debut at just 3 months old, thanks to his father, a renowned actor, and the triad, which his father called upon to support his young son's career. Bruce quickly became involved in local productions. However, his father's clashes with the Chinese mafia seemingly led to the triad cursing Bruce, vowing not only to destroy him, but to extend the curse to his descendants. As events unfolded, misfortune seemed to confirm this curse. On May 10, 1973, while working on the dubbing of The Way of the Dragon, Bruce began feeling unwell. He went to the bathroom and suddenly experienced nausea, vomiting, high fever, and convulsions. He was promptly taken to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with cerebral edema. Doctors administered medication to reduce the brain swelling, which managed to save his life at the time. 2 months later, on the night of July 20th, 1973, Bruce was at the Hong Kong home of his friend, Betty Ting Pei. The two had known each other for years, though tabloids often attempted to frame them as lovers, a claim Betty consistently denied. Bruce had arrived with his partner, producer Raymond Chow, who left shortly after to head to the Miramar restaurant, where they were scheduled to meet Australian actor George Lazenby for a role in Lee's new film, Game of Death. What happened next comes solely from Betty's account. She claimed Bruce complained of a severe headache, so she gave him an Equagesic tablet, which contained aspirin and meprobamate. He then lay down on her bed but didn't wake up. Concerned, Betty tried to rouse him, but he remained unconscious. She contacted Bruce's personal doctor and Raymond Chow, who arrived to find Bruce in a coma, lying neatly dressed with his arms at his sides. Unable to revive him, the doctor called for an ambulance. Bruce was taken to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, where he was declared dead on arrival at around 10 p.m. He passed away during the filming of Game of Death, which he had temporarily paused to complete Enter the Dragon, Hollywood's first kung fu film. Following his death, media scrutiny turned toward Betty, partly because of the delay in calling for help, which some believed might have saved Bruce's life. Since Bruce died in her home and under mysterious circumstances, reporters and fans began investigating her background. They uncovered links to alcohol, drugs, gambling, and associations with triad members. Additionally, her significant gambling debts were mysteriously cleared after Bruce's death, fueling further speculation. The autopsy did little to resolve the lingering questions, partly due to an unexplained delay of a day and a half before it was conducted. While an average adult brain weighs approximately 1,400 grams, Bruce's brain weighed 1,575 grams, a 13% increase. The cerebral edemas he experienced may have been the result of overexertion in the months leading up to his death. In her book Dragon, Linda noted Bruce's severe dehydration during the filming of The Way of the Dragon, which could have contributed to the swelling in his brain. Dehydration, trauma, or inflammation could all lead to cerebral edema. The autopsy revealed not only severe cerebral edema, Lee's brain was swollen like a sponge, indicating a sudden fluid buildup, but also possible kidney issues, as well as fluid and small traces of blood in his lungs. Some speculated this could have resulted from a particular kung fu technique known as dim mak. According to producer Raymond Chow, Bruce had sustained unusually hard blows during fight scenes on set, which, though unintentional, could have been dangerous. However, martial arts experts largely dismissed Dim Mak as mere folklore. The forensic report ultimately classified Bruce's death as accidental, citing an allergic reaction to the medication as the cause of the cerebral edema. Betty couldn't attend the funeral due to threats of lynching from Lee's fans. Skipping ahead in time to follow Betty's story, which might seem suspicious. In 1976, she starred in the movie Bruce Lee and I, where she played herself as the naive and mistreated lover of the famous martial arts champion, portrayed as a drug-addicted thug with a brain ailment. The film is an obvious exercise in distortion, but also potentially an admission of their relationship. The fact that the producer of the film is Run Run Shaw, the most powerful tycoon in Hong Kong, himself not on the best terms with Lee, appeared to the press as yet another ambiguous link. Then Betty married the producer and Triad member Charles Hung, who was believed by many to be involved in Lee's death. Supporters of the conspiracy theory about Lee's death suggest their marriage was one of convenience, as she had a young daughter and feared for her life. In 1985, she appeared in her last film, My Name Ain't Susie, before retiring from the entertainment industry and becoming a Buddhist nun. Triads don't typically harm Buddhist priests and nuns, so this move was seen as Betty's way of keeping herself safe. In 2005, she contributed to a statue dedicated to Bruce Lee, and even this action was interpreted as a belated attempt to make amends for never having revealed the truth about the star's disappearance. For Bruce Lee's funeral, the mourning crowd began to gather outside the Kowloon Funeral Parlor on the evening of July 24, 1973, in anticipation of the ceremony the following morning. As the scheduled time of 10 a.m. approached, the number exceeded 15,000. Several hundred police officers worked to control the crowd. Linda, his wife, dressed in white with short light brown hair and round sunglasses, dangerously thin, was surrounded by a group of Golden Harvest employees who helped her navigate through the crowd outside the main entrance of the funeral home. The room where the funeral altar was set up contained over 500 people. There was a photo of Bruce, flowers, and a banner that read, "A star sinks into the sea of art," 3 incense sticks, and 2 candles. The walls were covered with thousands of tributes written on white silk strips. Bruce's bronze casket was brought into the room, and the upper half of the casket was opened. Inside, there was a protective glass covering the body to prevent anyone from touching it. Linda had dressed her husband in the blue suit he had worn in Enter the Dragon, which he apparently liked to wear at home because it was comfortable. Under the glass, Bruce's face appeared gray and distorted despite the heavy makeup. Friends began the solemn procession in front of the open casket for a final farewell. Photographers jostled amongst themselves and with the invited guests, raising their cameras and snapping pictures furiously. Even weeks after the funeral, the cause of death remained vague, leading to street riots in Hong Kong that required riot police intervention. Fans felt that something was being hidden from them, or that the authorities didn't exactly know what they were dealing with. The only 2 substances found in Bruce Lee's blood during the autopsy were the 2 components of equagesic, the aforementioned aspirin, and 4 milligrams of cannabis that Bruce had ingested. The causes of Lee's death are still a subject of discussion today because this fatal hypersensitivity to the medication was never definitively proven. In particular, the neurosurgeon Peter Wu, who treated him, stated that the cause of death was due to an allergic reaction he had after taking the medication, but he later retracted these statements, adding that at the time he couldn't contradict the statements of the forensic scientists specifically hired by Scotland Yard to clarify the circumstances of the death. American karate champion Mike Anderson, a personal friend of Lee's, supports one of the many theories that consider Bruce Lee's death a murder. Death by an oriental herbal poison that couldn't have been detected in an autopsy performed 36 hours after death. On one hand, there was the slowness in establishing the cause of death, or at least in communicating it to the public. And on the other hand, the sudden acceleration that led to closing the investigation the following September. This only fueled rumors of a hasty cover-up since at that time, both the Hong Kong police, known as one of the most corrupt law enforcement agencies in the world, second only to the Los Angeles Police Department, and the judiciary, were often criticized for being infiltrated by organized crime syndicates, the triads, to which producers and directors with whom Lee had clashed multiple times were rumored to be affiliated. The more fervent fans suspected a number of people in connection with Lee's death. Raymond Chow, the producer who was waiting for him at the restaurant, with whom Lee was about to sever all working relationships since the producer had never given him the agreed-upon percentage of film profits. Unofficially among the suspects was also the director Lo Wei, who had ties to the triads and with whom the star had very public and violent quarrels. The immensely powerful producer Run Run Shaw is also rumored to have triad connections. Bruce had refused to work with him, causing the failure of an international co-production with Carlo Ponti and obviously dealing a significant blow to his image. Various figures from traditional Chinese and Japanese martial arts communities whom the actor had often criticized. In reality, even years later, a definitive cause of Bruce's death has not been officially declared and may remain hidden forever. If Bruce's death seemed shrouded in complexities, mysteries, and ties to mafia involvement, the untimely death of his only son, Brandon, born to his wife Linda Emery, was no less tragic. Brandon Bruce Lee was born on February 1st, 1965 in Oakland. Although his early years were relatively calm, he endured the profound loss of his father at the age of 8. After Bruce's death, Brandon, his mother Linda, and sister Shannon moved to Seattle, Linda's hometown, and Bruce's final resting place, before eventually relocating to Los Angeles. Brandon attended the prestigious Chadwick High School, but faced expulsion for insubordination just 3 months shy of graduation. Nevertheless, he managed to earn his diploma later on. Following his schooling, Brandon pursued an interest in acting, enrolling at Emerson College in Boston in 1983. He later moved to New York, joining the American New Theater, a company founded by director and friend John Lee Hancock. Brandon, who had begun martial arts training under his father's guidance as a child, continued his practice with Dan Inosanto, one of Bruce Lee's most prominent students. He studied various styles, including Jeet Kune Do, the martial art his father created. In 1985, Brandon returned to Los Angeles and embarked on his film career. Though he gained recognition in the martial arts film genre, he often felt discontented with his professional trajectory. The constant comparisons to his father's legendary legacy left him increasingly discouraged. Brandon openly criticized the action films he had acted in, describing them as stupid, and attributing his casting to being Bruce Lee's son. Determined to break away from these types of roles, he began turning down offers, seeking opportunities that emphasized character and story over physicality. Despite his success in films like Showdown in Little Tokyo and Rapid Fire, Brandon aspired to carve out his own unique legacy, distinct from his father's shadow. Known for his easygoing nature, grounded personality, and sharp intellect, he earned admiration from colleagues and fans alike, a contrast to the more complex reputation surrounding his father. In 1993, he was chosen to play Eric Draven in the movie The Crow, which was intended to mark a significant step forward in his acting career. The Crow, written by James O'Barr, was released as a graphic novel in 1989. The graphic novel had a beautiful, gothic, and macabre aesthetic, inspired by bands like The Cure and Joy Division, as well as O'Barr's personal grief. The story follows Eric, the protagonist, a musician in the band Hangman's Joke, who is resurrected by a crow after he and his fiancée are killed by thugs. There were 4 script revisions for The Crow, which gradually diverged from the original material. O'Barr mentioned that at one point there was even consideration of turning it into a musical with Michael Jackson. Initially, the author was concerned about casting Brandon Lee, fearing The Crow would turn into just another kung fu movie. Other actors considered included Christian Slater, deemed too pretty boy, and Johnny Depp, who demanded too much money. However, after meeting Brandon Lee in person, James O'Barr changed his mind, acknowledging Brandon's physicality and charisma, which he believed brought the right blend of humor, pain, and menace to the role of Eric. With a budget of $15 million, The Crow proved to be a challenging production from the start. There were numerous accidents, including a construction worker severely burned by a crane colliding with a power pole, an operator electrocuted, and other accidents on set. Additionally, a powerful storm destroyed outdoor sets, and several shootings occurred nearby on March 13th. Filming commenced with scenes of Eric Draven's resurrection, a process that took Brandon Lee 6 weeks of work under pouring rain and little clothing. When real rain wasn't enough, special rain machines were used on him. Despite complaints from others about the working conditions, Brandon remained enthusiastic and tried to boost the morale of the crew. He knew that after these scenes, the rest would be shot indoors. A week after filming wrapped, he was scheduled to marry his fiancée, Eliza Hutton. During pre-production, a props department supervisor had gone to acquire the necessary items for the film and reportedly purchased a pack of real bullets. It's illegal to have live ammunition on a film set, so the prop master confiscated these bullets and locked them in the trunk of his car. The gun to be used in The Crow was meant to be loaded with blanks, cartridges filled with a type of gunpowder known as primer, which produces a flash but doesn't propel a bullet. Blanks typically have cardboard-tipped projectiles instead of lead, ensuring that even if something were to discharge, it wouldn't cause harm. Filming with the gun began. In one scene, a victim is supposed to look down the barrel while the gun is pointed at their head. It's discovered that the blanks aren't loaded. A search on set yields no blanks. At this point, the prop master, renowned armorer Jeff Imada, goes to his car, takes the real bullets, and reportedly says, "Ha, I'll modify one, no prob." He's skilled in this, of course. However, he keeps one lead-tipped bullet for close-up shots because it will be visible on camera. March 30th, 1993, 8 days before filming wraps. They need to shoot the scene where Funboy shoots Eric. The gun to be used in this scene is the same, a .44 caliber. It had been used just 2 weeks before. Today, they've loaded blanks, but they're unaware that the lead-tipped bullet for close-ups is still lodged in the barrel. In the scene, Eric enters his apartment holding grocery bags, gets attacked, and Brandon is supposed to trigger a squib, a blood packet that bursts to simulate an expanding wound. Action. The gun fires, the squib bursts, and Brandon Lee collapses. Everything seems fine. The director is satisfied, calls cut, and the crew readies the set for another take. But Brandon doesn't move. Due to the short distance and the obstructed barrel, a blank charge was sufficient to dislodge the obstructing bullet fragment. Eliza Hutton, Brandon's fiancée and a production assistant on the film, is the first to realize that something is wrong. She screams and rushes toward Brandon. It's then that everyone realizes there wasn't that much fake blood in the squib, and Brandon is losing a significant amount of real blood from a wound just above his navel. He's already breathing weakly. He's rushed to the New Hanover Regional Medical Center and undergoes a 6-hour surgery. Unfortunately, at 1:04 a.m. on March 31st, 1993, he's declared dead. A metallic object, the bullet's projectile, is found in his abdomen. Technically, it was actor Michael Massey who fired the gun, and an investigation ensues that lasts for 2 months. Jeff Imada and 6 others from the props department are at risk of being charged with involuntary manslaughter. The work on The Crow set was completed using a stand-in who performed various scenes, and Brandon Lee's face was digitally overlaid on this double. The scene where he enters his apartment with grocery bags was eliminated. The official cause of death is listed as an accidental gunshot wound. Brandon's body was transported to Washington State, where he was laid to rest on April 3rd near his father at Lakeview Cemetery. The day after his burial, a memorial service was held at the home of actress Polly Bergen. Attendees included David Carradine, Kiefer Sutherland, David Hasselhoff, Lou Diamond Phillips, and Steven Seagal. Rumors about strange events on the set of The Crow often circle back to the alleged involvement of the triad. While I've come across websites proposing absurd theories only marginally more plausible than those involving time-space portals, certain doubts linger. For example, it's been claimed that the forensic examiner who signed Brandon Lee's autopsy report wasn't actually present for the procedure. Who was responsible for overseeing the firearm on set that night? Could someone have intentionally loaded it with live rounds to harm Brandon Lee? A Hanover County deputy reportedly testified to an intriguing detail, if true. However, this deputy was never formally investigated, leaving room for speculation. He alleged that an Asian American man appeared on set, spoke with the weapons crew, and professed his admiration for martial arts films, claiming he had traveled from New York to watch the filming. This unidentified individual was never questioned, and Crowvision Inc.'s records contained missing entry logs, leaving his presence unverified. Some argue this accident could be tied to an incident in Brandon's youth when at 18 he got into a violent altercation and severely beat the son of a prominent triad member. Others suggest it may relate to the so-called curse, or even the theory that the Chinese mafia murdered Bruce Lee as retribution for revealing ancient martial arts secrets to the West. Fans who believe in a criminal conspiracy often point to the film Game of Death, released posthumously and assembled from Bruce Lee's work. The plot eerily mirrors real life, portraying a Hong Kong movie star who defies a criminal syndicate seeking to exploit his fame. In retaliation, they arrange his death on set with a gun firing blanks. During filming, safety protocols dictate that actors handling blank rounds wear protective gear and avoid aiming directly at their co-stars. A weapons expert should have instructed Michael Massey to aim slightly off target rather than at Brandon Lee's abdomen. If these precautions were neglected, it points to a staggering level of negligence, further fueling conspiracy theories. Ultimately, Brandon's death was ruled an accident, and no criminal charges were filed. His family, mother Linda, sister Shannon, and fiancée Eliza, chose to end the investigations, withdrawing complaints except for a civil case that was resolved out of court with a financial settlement. Reports suggest that investigators were dismayed by this decision, as 7 individuals were on the verge of standing trial for involuntary manslaughter. By halting the proceedings, further scrutiny was avoided. To this day, viewing the incident footage is impossible. The district attorney ordered all evidence sealed, and Linda Lee, Brandon's mother, directed the destruction of the recordings. In truth, I fear it was nothing more than a devastating accident. Despite the tragedy, The Crow achieved cult status and immense acclaim. Since 2008, there has been speculation about a reboot, with various actors and directors considered for the role of Eric, including Bradley Cooper, Mark Wahlberg, Channing Tatum, Ryan Gosling, James McAvoy, Tom Hiddleston, and Alexander Skarsgård. Luke Evans was once attached to the project but later exited, as did Jason Momoa. As of now, the project remains labeled as in development.